Get to do that. All righty. So good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday morning. For those of us who are, it is where it is morning. We've got some people with us who are not in the States. And so it is not morning. So I'll say good, it's afternoon or early evening-ish. But thank you all for joining today. We are excited to have our Gateway to Growth workshop and panel discussion that will be taking place today. My name is Dr. Kitiana Lowe, and I am the Director of Administration here at WEBEC ORV. And so we are excited to have all of you join us today. And what I would like to do first is actually introduce our team. So we have our fearless leader, Lenny Smith, who's our president and CEO. Colleen Rudisell is our director of certification and outreach, as well as Stephen Easley is our fractional chief marketing officer. And then our certification team, we have Angela Ruff, who's our certification specialist, as well as Robert Moore, or Robbie Moore as he goes by, who's our manager of certification. And then we wrap things up with our manager of marketing and communications, Catherine Macon, and our corporate relations consultant, Byron Stallworth. So we are a mighty team of 8 who work diligently to do all the work for our WBEs and our corporate partners in our community. And so we are excited to have some of our WBEs and corporate partners with us this morning. I would like to go ahead and introduce Kolisile Twala. I think I got it right. I've been practicing a while. She is the founder and CEO of Busisiwe Bembe Foundation. And we know her, though, because she is a part of the 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow. And so she will share more about that fellowship program. But we had a wonderful opportunity to work with Koli, as we call her, for 6 weeks, a little bit earlier this month. And one of the things that she wanted to do was put together a workshop to share with our WBEs about how to do business within Africa. And so it's been a labor of love. We weren't able to get it done within 6 weeks. For those of you who have facilitated workshops and things like that, putting together a workshop and panel and things like that in less than 6 weeks, in addition to getting to know her and things like that, just wasn't feasible. So we're excited to see this labor of love that she's worked on so diligently come together today. So Koli, I will pass it on to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. K. I'd like to say good morning to everyone who is in the US, and then good afternoon to everyone who is currently in the continent. As Dr. K has said, my name is Kolisile Twala, also known as Koli. I am a Mandela Washington Fellow, as she has explained, and just a little bit, this is a fellowship that is a flagship program of the US government's Young African Leaders Initiative, known as YALI. It was established in 2014 by President Barack Obama and has brought nearly 6,500 young leaders from every country in sub-Saharan Africa to the United States for academic and leadership training. The fellows are normally between the ages of 25 to 35 years old, and they are accomplished innovators and learners in their communities and countries. So I was very fortunate to be part of those. And because of that, I really have a heart to see Africa develop. So to just introduce myself a little bit, I am an award-winning author, a certified finance coach, a personal financial management trainer, a local economic development expert in Africa, African Growth and Opportunity Act, known as AGOA advisor, and a 7 leadership mentor for youth. I am a founder, as Dr. K has said, and CEO of the Busisiwe Bembe Foundation, which is a social enterprise that focuses on mentorship, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship development in Africa. Under the foundation, we've trained more than 1,700 people on personal financial management. We've mentored 40 young people and have trained more than 260 people on entrepreneurship skills. That's another labor of love. I serve in different boards in Eswatini and West Africa. I hold a Master's of Commerce in Business Sciences, BCom Honors in Entrepreneurship, and a Bachelor of Business Administration. And Dr. K has introduced that I met the amazing team in 22nd of January we did a PDE, which is a professional development experience, which is done by Mandela Washington Fellows if you opt for that option. So I applied and I was very fortunate to be linked to the Women's Business Enterprise Council, Ohio River Valley, WIBEC ORV. So for 6 weeks, I learned a whole lot, and I'm so happy that the one project, because we normally encourage to do a project, and Dr. K was so patient in hand-holding me and as we worked to make this project a reality. So I'm also super grateful to Dr. K and the WIBEC ORV team to actually make sure that this comes to pass. And thank you so much to our panelists today for actually joining us and ensuring that we actually get to do this workshop. Since I am an AGOA advisor, but I'm still pretty new, I reached out to the expert who trained me to become an AGOA advisor. I requested Dr. Wilmot to present and be with us today. I will read his bio a little bit, but I'm definitely not going to be able to cover everything. I think maybe he will add the stuff. There's so much stuff that he's done. He's absolutely amazing. So I'm just going to say a little bit about him before I ask him to do the presentation for us. So Dr. Wilmot Allen is based in Nairobi and Washington, D.C. He is a U.S. Africa trade expert, an investor, an entrepreneur, a strategy consultant, diaspora engagement with Africa Pioneer, and a political economist. He is also the founder and chairman of Venture Lift Africa VLA, a venture studio with an advisory firm, VLA Capital Advisors, facilitating investment, trade, tech transfer, market entry, and expansion for SMEs and corporates. In 2023, VLA was an implementation partner for the USAID ATI program related to the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, under Prosper Africa, for training AGOA advisors and facilitating greater US-Africa trade. VLA trained more than 100 AGOA advisors in Africa and the US and is now establishing commerce hubs in selected African and US cities. The commerce hub have been initiated in Los Angeles, where they're doing fashion, Detroit, where they're doing automobile parts and EV equipment, and Atlanta, where they're doing agricultural goods. Over the next 5 years, these hubs target facilitating 1,000 jobs, $600 million in trade deals, and 10,000 new trade partners. In 2020, Dr. Wilmot was engaged as a trade specialist by USAID Southern Africa Trade and Investment Hub to facilitate trade deals between the region and the US and achieved a pipeline of over $5 million in purchase orders in 1 year. VLA curates leading diaspora companies into Africa and supports the market expansion of great African brands into global markets with significant diaspora populations. In 2020, in partnership with the U.S. Minority Business Development Agency, VLA co-hosted the seminar Diaspora Investment and Trade Deal event, attracting nearly 1,000 registrants and facilitating a pipeline of over 20 million US dollars in investment or trade deals. VLA now has access to over 100,000 businesses in the US through its partnerships. He is a native of Cincinnati, Ohio. Dr. Wilmot has a PhD in comparative political economy from Georgetown University, an MBA from the Wharton School of Business, an MPA from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, and he also has a BA from Yale University. So thank you so much, Dr. Wilmot. Your wisdom in this subject is absolutely invaluable. I would like to request you to make your presentation.
Thank you so much, Coley, and thank you for being such a wonderful partner as an AGOA advisor. And thank you all for joining today, this morning, this evening, this afternoon. It's good to see my friend Manny Adu, who's on the call and joining us today, who I met, I think, last year in Cincinnati through the facilitation of Mrs. Hightower's husband, Steve Hightower. So really grateful to see these connections. And it's good to speak to people in the tri-state about Africa. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity. So much appreciation to the Women's Business Enterprise Council of the Ohio River Valley. And let's dig in. Next slide, please. So today I want to give you just an overview of some of the things I've learned about trade and doing business with Africa by implication. And it pulls from about over 2 decades of experience. And then I want to share some of the foundations of what makes Africa such a great opportunity today. The key policy initiatives, I think, which undergird particularly the U.S.-Africa strengthening economic commerce relationship. But we want to start it off with highlighting what's important for Africa in the terms that the people of Africa, the leaders of Africa, have stated in something called Agenda 2063. Then more practically, we'll talk about how to actually engage. We're going to outline a few areas: African Growth and Opportunity Act, trade, commerce hubs. We'll explain more about that later, where there are other opportunities than just the AGOA advisory work and the AGOA trade. But we have thought through and have implemented many of these things that we're presenting today, such as contract manufacturing opportunities, joint venture partnerships, distribution, and connecting opportunities. And last but not least, I just want to highlight that in addition to trade, there is a democratized way for Americans, and we particularly target the diaspora, to engage with Africa through investment, through angel investing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And there's the accompanying event, which we're going to be planning for later this year, called the Diaspora Investment and Trade Deal Event. We probably won't have time for this, but just for your curiosity, I've passed on these slides to Dr. Lowe. They're case studies, 3, I think they're all from East Africa. I'm in Nairobi, so these are all from East Africa, but we do have others from Southern, Central, and West Africa, and potentially for North Africa as well, about how deals have gotten done, the impact, the structure of them from an investment side, but also from trade. Next slide, please. So Coley, thank you again for the generous introduction. I won't go into this very much. I think you've covered a little bit of everything. I will say this: the Venture Studio and the Venture Lift Africa work is one of the hats I wear. I'm also a private equity investor in healthcare now, and excited about that because, as we know, health is wealth, and we're excited that we, through this fund, invest in green, tech-smart hospitals and health tech. And the reason why that's important is because it gives so many amazing entrepreneurs that run health tech companies the opportunity now to embed their technology into infrastructure, in this case, hospitals and clinics across Southern and Eastern Africa. So if anyone is interested in healthcare, happy to talk about that offline. So just in summary, my experience has been, for the last almost decade, in Nairobi. I've also lived in Nigeria, in Lagos and Abuja, and Zimbabwe. And I've done business probably across 40 to 50 countries. And I'm often asked, how does someone from Cincinnati arrive in Nairobi and stay here? And the reason being, well, I came to Nairobi for a job after working at the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. I took a role to run the transaction team for the East Africa Trade and Investment Hub, covering East Africa. That was established by presidential decree under President Obama by USAID. But the whole beginning for me actually happened in a living room in Pleasant Ridge. I grew up in Kennedy Heights and Pleasant Ridge in Cincinnati. A long time ago when I was a teenager, I had the opportunity to get to know some young people from Africa who were graduate students at the University of Cincinnati, who actually stayed in our home. And so they were all from Southern Africa, from Botswana, from Mozambique. And so that was my initial introduction. And they kind of figuratively grabbed me by the collar and said, "Hey, you're our young brother. We're not going to allow you to go out miseducated about Africa." So proceeded to share not only their lives, but literature, enabled me to get back to the continent, or come to the continent through the facilitation of their families. So that was my sort of ground zero for, in addition to my curiosity as a person of African descent who was curious about my roots, having this personal engagement with them which educated me, which informed me, inspired me, and really underpins my love for Pan-Africa today. Next slide. So one more slide about Venture Lift. We'll go back to that. It's a multi-platform enterprise dedicated to engagement with diaspora. We have a venture studio in which we bring companies in to the continent. We also take great brands from Africa. In this case, we're looking mostly at Southern Africa right now and West Africa into the US. And we also facilitate investment into Africa through various means, including a newly established diaspora angel investor network. And I have the good fortune to do some other things in the creative sector with connecting Hollywood, particularly Black Hollywood, with the creative sector across the continent through something called the International Writers Lab. Today, mostly we'll focus on the trade platform work that Kole already talked about. And as she said, she is a certified AGOA advisor. We were able for 2022 and 23 to be partners, implementation partners with Prosper Africa and USAID to train AGOA advisors. And now we're actually implementing trade deals with their advisory support. Here is the foundation for what I want to share about the Africa opportunity: booming population, rapid urbanization, and improved business environment and economic development. 54 countries. The population will double to about 2.3 billion by 2050. Rising middle class, definitely, as most of the world sort of took a hit during COVID, but consumer spending nevertheless is expected to double to about 2.5 trillion by 2030 from 2015 levels. And then despite the reality of challenges which many countries across the world face, but also here in Africa, the reality of political unrest in some instances, corruption challenges, abject poverty, and in other ways. Despite all of that, we are seeing an improved business environment across a number of countries and strengthened economic development as well. Next slide, please. So I underscored the fact that I wanted, before we talk about the policies that other countries have instituted towards Africa, to talk about what in its autonomy, the people of Africa have said that they want is the agenda for themselves. And it's something called Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. It was set by the Africa Union, which is headquartered in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And it's a strategic framework towards inclusive and sustainable development with the Pan-African ethos. I won't go through all the detail here, but you can see the 7 aspirations and economic priorities. And I would say the best illustration of this is something we'll talk about a little bit later in terms of how this is being operationalized is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which promotes inter-Africa trade. We'll say more about that later. Next slide, kindly. So AGOA is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, established as an act of Congress in 2000. I'm just going to highlight some of these things just in the interest of time, but it's due to expire next September 30th of 2025. And we are optimistic that it will be extended and reinstated before that time. In fact, over the last few weeks, there has been a proposal submitted by the Senate to extend it for about 16 years. So that's good news. It hasn't been accepted yet, but it will come to point of decision and a vote soon. The structure is that of the AGOA is that it allows duty-free entry of over 4,500 goods. There are about 32 AGOA beneficiary countries. So it's a government-to-government agreement. So it's not government to company around government-to-government around a set of policies that, bottom line, for U.S. buyers, facilitates duty-free or custom-free access to the African market. And there are a lot of different benefits. Let me just go to the outcomes. In general, in 2022, we saw about 10 billion in AGOA trade sales. The top exports: oil and gas, transportation equipment and apparel, and food. Top export markets: South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana. And you can see we have some success examples at the bottom. Ghana, based on 23% only of contribution of AGOA sales, exports scaled from 206 million in 2001 to 2.8 billion in 2022. Kenya, sales increased in the apparel sector from 55 million in 2001 to 603 million in 2022. In South Africa, the automobile sector has greatly benefited. Sales increased by nearly 448% from 2001 to 2022. And this is an initiative of Prosper Africa, which is an interagency initiative. About 15 U.S. agencies are involved. And so it's a grand initiative that we hope will continue to pay dividends for both the people of Africa and the people in America to promote shared prosperity. Next slide, kindly. So I mentioned the CFTA as it is shorthand for the African Continental Free Trade Area, and it was established in 2018 by the African Union. And the general objectives, I'm just going to give you the bottom line, is really to promote shared prosperity within Africa among African countries. The reason why this is important is because historically, Africa has done more trade with non-African countries than with countries within its own borders. And obviously, you can just think about the implications of that for not really advancing economic development for countries, infrastructure, and all these things that come about through trade. Well, it has been the case, but the good news is that things are changing now. Next slide, please. So let me just talk about the ways to engage with AGOA through our advisory program. And you can go to a site called agoatradeworks.com. I should first of all say that this project was made possible by the generous support of the U.S. people like you, and Prosper Africa. We tried to address a problem that was the lack of knowledge about AGOA, the lack of utilization of AGOA benefits by training over 100 experts who could help buyers in the U.S. and suppliers in Africa understand better what AGOA is, the benefits, how to become eligible, and how to implement them. The impact that we are seeing now is that these 100 AGOA advisors now have been deployed to go out and mobilize their own customers to have impact with helping trade to be facilitated by improving AGOA knowledge. And that's really what we want to see as a grand result. Firm level AGOA of access approved, companies understanding how to take advantage of it, exports between the Africa and the U.S. increasing, and just the commercial relationship between the U.S. and Africa strengthening. Next slide. Whoops, I think we're going the wrong direction. There you go. Okay, so, and whoops, no, you went over just one back, I think. Yeah, just one, whoops. So I talked about some ways to engage. We mentioned the AGOA advisors, which can instruct you if you are looking to source from Africa on how to go about that, how to take advantage and qualify for the duty-free benefits, how to, first of all, identify if the products that you're targeting are AGOA eligible. We also have prepared them for questions like how to identify suppliers and how to make sure that they are who they say that they are, due diligence on them, how to get samples, how to test products, as well as things like how to apply for funding, maybe to buy from Africa as well. And so we also can help with logistics when it comes to moving your product from Africa into the US. These two posters are a little bit out of order, so I'm going to start with the one on the right, because it more relates to trade. And that is, we now have established something called the US-Africa Commerce Hubs. USACH is what we call them. So they're basically a nexus of aggregated buyers, logistics and warehousing, exhibition space, what's called trade finance to help the suppliers meet the orders in terms of the working capital needs that they have in order to do that. and an e-commerce platform as well. So we have started to roll this out around fashion in LA. We have a partner that's helping us now around the automobile equipment and electronic vehicle equipment in Detroit. And a hodgepodge of products are targeted for Atlanta. And we also are looking to do something like this in the Midwest. Would love to kind of finalize things that we started in Cincinnati. The other part of it is, as I mentioned, there is now an opportunity for you, if you are not as interested in trade, to engage through investing. We understand that not everyone works for an investment institution that has tens of millions of dollars to invest in enterprises or in infrastructure, but perhaps you do have $10,000 to $50,000 that you can invest in Africa, in tech, in healthcare, in education, in agri, with the guidance of experienced investors. And so we have created a structured vehicle to do just that, called the Diaspora and Angel Investor Network, DANE for short. And we continue this information. We give a case for why Africa, why the diaspora. In short, let me just say something about why the diaspora. It's the buying power of the diaspora. We're just talking about North America, namely the US to begin. The buying power, the branding power, as well as the kinship factors, which makes, I think, economic engagement with Africa not just about dollars and cents, even though that should be prioritized for businesses to stay in businesses, for businesses to stay in business, to grow and to scale, but also it's about value and impact and meaning. If we do a comparative look around diaspora engagement throughout the world, whether it's Israel, India, China, or Ireland, we all can see that the diaspora in each of those countries has been very instrumental to economic stability, economic transformation, and ongoing economic rise of those countries. We believe the same is true and can be true for Africa beyond remittances, which are traditionally the way in which flows from individuals come into the continent. This is a vehicle that is a network, it's not a fund, whereby the members would be paired with investors, experienced investors who are also angels throughout the continent for co-investment opportunities and to learn from their investment track record. So any of these opportunities, we welcome your interest, we welcome your collaboration. I'm especially keen on the right partners, and Mandy and I are talking about this for the Ohio Valley, for Cincinnati, especially given it's my hometown. It has so many great companies there, Kroger, Procter & Gamble, and others that I think could really become the ingredients of a great commerce hub, in addition to the great people there who are diaspora, non-diaspora, just the American people there. I think when informed and when educated about the benefits of doing business with Africa, share prosperity, impact on lives, I think it's a powerful and compelling rationale to get involved. So we welcome your interest. Next slide. This is a thought piece, a policy brief that I wrote for Johns Hopkins SAIS as a fellow there about how the textile and apparel value chain is beginning to shift from Asia to Africa, namely East Africa in this case. This is important because one of the other opportunities that I wanted to share with you is that there are now contract manufacturing opportunities, particularly in textile and apparel, that if you own a company, a fashion company, medium-sized company, or whatever the size, you want to have private label goods brought in from Africa, you can be connected. We can help you connect to the right manufacturers on the continent. And apparel is AGOA eligible. There are some additional stipulations, which we certainly can take you through. But this is a grand opportunity, particularly for those who, for various reasons, want to move now some of their capacity from Asia to Africa and take advantage of the duty-free provisions of AGOA, advance economic prosperity, particularly among women who disproportionately make up a lot of the staff of the labor force of the textile and apparel manufacturing facilities. So would be very keen to talk to you more about that if you're interested. And you may say, well, I'm not interested in textile. Well, it could be handicrafts. It could be other products that are able to be private label, coffee and tea, for example. So please be in touch. At this time, I'll stop there. I'm happy to take any questions. Let me just share with you my contact information. Next slide. Let me just do that. I forgot that. I think that would have been shared in any event. But you can find out more information about AGOA at AGOA Trade Works, our advisor network, a little bit about the Venture Studio diaspora engagement work that I do through VLAfrica.com. Obviously, the healthcare work is separate. You can reach out to me about any of that information, including the healthcare, at Wilmot@VLAfrica.com. And there is an erroneous period after Wilmot. It shouldn't be there, just Wilmot & VLAfrica.com. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilmot. I don't know if there are any questions. I see in the chat there is good to know from Sonja Smith. I don't know if anybody else has questions for Dr. Wilmot. So you can either write your question in the chat or please indicate, or you can just go in and say your question.
Hi, this is Kendra Alexander. Thank you for doing this today. I'm really appreciative of this information. My question is, hey, Manny. Hey, Manny's my guy. I wanted to know, are the businesses actually owned by African people, or are they owned by, let's say, a Chinese or African government, or even outside entities? I was just curious.
So there are businesses across the continent that are in each of those categories, but I think you're asking about the businesses that we work with, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So we're very intentional about promoting economic autonomy and prosperity for Africa. So that means that we look to work with indigenous companies, particularly companies that have large staffs of women or that are women-led. Because as you know, particularly in this part of the world, the gender gap, the gender inequality is really, really significant when it comes to wealth and net worth and everything that implies about being able to be autonomous over your own life, your own body, and everything else. So we think that that is the only way Africa truly rises. We hear that terminology a lot, Africa rising, but it won't rise until the people of Africa begin to rise. Not just government leaders, not just expats coming in, including myself, but the actual people of Africa. So yes, that's how we work.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Kendra. And thank you, Dr. Wilmot. We have a question in the chat by Jessica. It says, hello, thank you for the information. My business is in the tech and creative space. What, if any, opportunities are available for an organization like ours to engage?
Tech is very general. I would say the opportunities for tech are very rife. They're across the board. FinTech, education tech, health tech, agri-tech. So in cyber. So there are tremendous opportunities, and in a lot of countries, it's greenfield, right? The digital infrastructure is newly established. It's expanding. More people have phones, particularly smartphones now than ever before. And so most businesses now are thinking about how to become best tech-enabled, not just because of AI and big data, which is driving a lot of change, but this had been the impulse even before the rise of those innovations. And I'll say this, the great thing about Africa is that because the level of development, I would say, is uneven. You have countries like South Africa, you have countries like Kenya, then you have some like Malawi and others. There's an opportunity for the continent in many ways to leapfrog, right? To not necessarily go through the linear evolution of development that typically the West has done. I'll give you a good example of that where I am in Kenya. Mobile money, M-Pesa. So typically, probably about three decades ago, maybe even more recently, most people, just paid in cash. They kept cash in their mattresses, throughout their homes, et cetera, et cetera. But the innovation of mobile money, when you can basically on your phone exchange money, changed everything, right? And so that has created opportunities for wealth building, access to finance, paying bills, paying for a number of things as a consumer. So tech, the opportunities are rife. In the creative space, I'll tell you, so I spent a little time, I didn't talk about this, working at the Walt Disney Company, ABC TV, and at PBS. And so the creative space, in addition to fashion and media and entertainment, the creative space is very dear to my heart. I established the International Writers Lab to better connect experienced writers here with opportunities through Hollywood. And I would say, again, it's early days. There are initiatives in which the State Department is putting money into programs that operate very similar to what we established in 2021 now. Other enterprises are investing in the creative space, not just fashion and apparel, but also music and film and television. And if any of you are Afrobeat fans, you know that the rise of Afrobeats is taking over the world in terms of becoming household music now, not just in Pretoria or in Lagos, but across the world. And so the investment in those sectors we're starting to see pay off, but more. So yes, there are lots of opportunities. And I will put my contact information in the chat. Thank you so much. Hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilmot. Yes, please. Karen has asked for the contact information to be put in the chat. So perfect.
Yes.
I don't know if there are any other questions before we wrap up Dr. Wilmot's session. So maybe we'll take a couple more, one or two questions. You can just go ahead and ask, or you can put in the chat. And at least now you have Dr. Wilmot information, so you can reach out to him privately to engage him. Right, I don't see any more questions. Dr. K, do you see any more questions?
I do not see any more questions in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Bernita has a question.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilmot. I think everyone needs to connect with you. I don't want to spill the tea before I start speaking, but when you talk about finances and with your background, could you expound a little bit more about the exchange and how money is going in and coming out when doing business on the continent?
Sure. Exchange, you mean the exchange rate or just exchange in general?
How the money fluctuates.
It fluctuates. Okay.
And how it fluctuates, and how sometimes in some countries and provinces, you are not able to get the monies dependent on the law. So
So yeah. So the fundamental reality is that most countries, all countries, deal in what they call local currency here. And they also deal in what's called hard currency, which typically people mean US dollar. It could be the franc. And the exchange rates fluctuate based upon a lot of different things in countries, whether it's political events, volatility in oil. Remember, a significant number of African countries are natural resource based. So for example, if you're in Nigeria, the currency there is Naira. And your Naira sometimes will fluctuate in value depending upon the price of oil that undergirds the economy. And when doing business, if you are paying in dollars, it's not always a case that you can get dollars out get paid in dollars if you have a local company here. So if, say you're in the US and you have business to do in Kenya, right? The local currency is shillings. So if you put money into the business in dollars, but it's paid out in shillings, then the currency risk is very real. And so there are hedges that you can do, financial instruments, insurance, that you can acquire to actually protect somewhat against that risk, but it doesn't eliminate it. The good news is that in places like Kenya now, the shilling compared to dollar is being strengthened. But in other economies, it's not. It's falling compared to the dollar. And so that's something you always have to look at in every transaction, whether it's trade or investment, what you're paying in, what currency you're paying in, and how you will be paid, and looking at the exchange rate and how to mitigate the risk. At the same time, not only looking at the currency, but looking what's happening in the country, but now in the world, because interest rate changes in the US will affect the value of the dollar. Interest rate changes in the countries will also impact the exchange rate. So there's a lot to really continue to track. In addition to, as we read about the great tourist places, the white sand beaches and Cape Town and Accra and all these things, we gotta pay attention to some of these economic indicators, particularly the macro ones, that really will influence how we make money, how much money we make, and as importantly, how the impact of that money for the local economies as well. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Right. Thank you so much, Benita. And thank you so much, Dr. Wilmot. I always say that in the US, you're so lucky that the US dollar is normally quite strong. So if you are actually importing from Africa, you're buying stuff cheap, like really cheap. So I mean, I think it's one good thing that you can take advantage of how strong the dollar is normally when it's compared to our currencies here in Africa. So thank you so much, Dr. Wilmot, again, for the presentation. And as he has said, it has been shared with Dr. K, who will share it with our participants. Dr. K, I'd like to hand over to you now.
Yes, thank you again. Thank you, Coley, and thank you, Dr. Allen, for the wealth of information that was shared today. As Coley just mentioned, we will send the presentation out. We'll send the presentation as well as the recording out. We want to transition a little bit for our session. We wanted to share information with you, and then we wanted you to have the opportunity to hear from some business owners who are actually doing the work that Dr. Wilmot has just talked about. So we have 3 panel members that are going to join us today. One of us actually is joining us, well, I guess we're all virtual, so it's pre-recorded, and that's going to be the first person that I'm going to introduce. So I'm going to introduce Sonia Jackson Miles, and I will say I'm going to tell you about her business and then explain why she's not here with us today. But she does have a video that we're going to play just to share and welcome you all. So Sonia Jackson Miles founded the Sister Accord Foundation with the goal of having 1 billion girls and women learn how to love themselves and each other. The foundation works to inspire future female leaders, starting with changing how girls and women treat, support, and interact with each other. In 2021, Sonia established the Sister Accord Foundation's expansion into Africa, with chapters launching in Zimbabwe. In early 2023, the Sister Accord Malawi chapter was established. And just in August 2023, she announced a significant milestone, which was a partnership with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and they established a chapter in Johannesburg. She has also recently announced the establishment of a chapter in Bahamas. So Sonia is not able to be with us here virtually today because she is actually in the plane flying to Africa doing some work there. So I figured, even though she's not able to join us, no better reason for her not to be here than to be going to the continent to do work. With the women and girls there. But like I said, she does have a quick video that she wants to share with all of you all, just to welcome you all and share a little bit more about her business.
My name is Sonia Jackson Miles, founder and CEO of the Sister Accord LLC. I am on a mission to have 1 billion girls and women learn how to love themselves and each other, embracing their value and worth. And the reason why this is important is because during my corporate years working for Ford Motor Company, the Gillette Company, and Procter & Gamble, I saw where women were not fully embracing who they are. They weren't fully embracing and understanding their gifts and talents in a way that allowed them to show up every single day walking in greatness. In so many instances, they were doubting. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't apply for that promotion. Oh, I'm not ready for this. When in fact, they really were. And so 10 years ago, I left my role at Procter & Gamble in November of 2013 to focus on helping girls and women build their confidence and tap into their greatness. And so we do this in a variety of ways. We have events, we have leadership development programs, we have the Sister Accord Accelerator, where we give $10,000 to women-owned businesses. And so we have a variety of ways that we serve girls and women around the world with love, kindness, and excellence.
All right, thank you virtually. Thank you, Sonia. So the next panel member that I would like to introduce is Bernita McCain Hightower. She is the president and CEO of Next Generation Fuel, which is a wholesale distributor of gasoline, diesel, DEF, and alternative fuels throughout the United States. As president and CEO, she has secured international partnerships with Fortune 100 and 500 corporations. In 2016, Next Generation Fuel was recognized by MBDA as the top female and minority-owned energy firm in the United States. Bernita is passionate about fuel and energy and creating opportunities for the next generation of women and underrepresented people to develop their skills, enter, and make impact in the industry. Bernita, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Thank you so much, and thank you to my panel, my fellow panelists, Manny, and also thank you to Dr. Allen for really taking us a deep dive into the possibility of what is very possible on the continent of Africa. Just like Manny, I was a person of curiosity. For myself, back in 2016, I took a vacation that was supposed to be for 10 years, I mean, 10 years, I wish it was 10 years, but more of 10-day vacation and to be on a safari and to just take it all in, turned into a 3-day vacation and a 7-day work week, because immediately I saw the opportunity that was there and the value of collaborating with those who are on the continent, and also what we from the United States can bring as a descendant of Africa. So today, not only am I a distributor of gasoline and diesel here in the United States, but I'm also a distributor in South Africa since 2016. Glad to be here.
Thank you, and welcome, welcome, welcome. And last but certainly not least, I feel like there's really no way to introduce Manny, because I feel like Manny knows everybody. Anytime somebody popped on this call, Manny came on screen and said, "Hey, so-and-so, how you doing?" So I feel that everybody already knows Manny, but for those that may not, Manny Addo is the CEO of Natural Shea Care. He's probably most known or very well known for his True Shea line of shea butter, which is absolutely amazing. He has leveraged his knowledge and background with AGOA, finance, banking, and supply chain gained from companies such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, JP Morgan, General Electric, to import products from Africa and distribute them over 5,000 stores in the United States and in Canada. He is in Kroger, Walmart, Target, TJ Maxx, as well as Marshalls. So thank you so much for joining us, Manny. Would you like to share a little bit more?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'd like to go ahead and, say thanks to Bernita. Bernita is one of my biggest cheerleaders, both from a business standpoint and from my True Shea standpoint. She's one of our unrecognized models. She was one of the very few people who came to join us when we were modeling our product 3-4 years ago. I don't even know if she even remembers that or not. And again, thanks again for meeting Dr. Allen. Like I said, about 6 months ago in this very room that I'm speaking from right now, Dr. Allen was sitting right across from me and we're having a business conversation. So I think that when the idea of the panelists came and I heard Dr. Allen and I heard Sonia and I heard Bernita, I'm like, what a better place to be at this point, at this moment. I keep on saying that Dr. Allen and I have traded places. I've moved from Africa, I've come to Cincinnati. He's moved from Cincinnati, he's going to Africa. So we're just traded places and we're doing the exact same God's work. Anyway, I own a skincare line which is called Trouche, and I bring products from Africa, import them into the United States, process them, and distribute them across the United States and Canada. We're currently in 1,500 Kroger stores, Walmart, and Target. And I'm writing a book to chronicle this journey. And more importantly, to be able to share the experiences with entrepreneurs, both in the United States and Africa, because for those of you who know, this entrepreneurship journey is not easy. Book comes out next week. It's titled From Africa to 1,500 Kroger Stores. The subtitle is My American Journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. And congratulations in advance. We are so proud of you. I'm assuming the book will be in Kroger since you mentioned Kroger, but where else can we get the book? Just shameless plug for you real quick.
So it will be in Amazon as well. So
Amazon, there we go.
Thank you.
Okay, definitely. So thank you to the three of you for joining us for the panel today. I'm actually going to turn it back over to Coley, who is going to facilitate the panel and ask the panelists a few questions. For those who are listening in, please feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go. We will have a Q&A session and we'll just really have a really organic conversation today.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. And thank you so much, Benita and Ado, Manny. It's such an honor to be having a conversation with you. I'll just jump right into it, and I'll start with Sonia in her absentia. She, as Dr. K has said, she's currently on her way to South Africa, which is why she couldn't join us today, but she's very passionate about this subject. So I had a conversation with her and asked her, what are the potential long-term impacts of doing business with Africa? And why is this good for any US company, and how can it be sustained? And this was her response.
Long-term impacts of importing and exporting into Africa and how businesses can really sustain this are critically important long-term impacts. When you think about where the growth is in the world, the population growth in Africa across the continent is so significant. And when we think about where the needs are and how those needs will become even greater in the future, being able to deliver on what those needs are is going to be critically important. I have said in many instances, if a company does not have an Africa strategy, I'm not so sure what the future will hold for the company. It's where the growth in the world is. And so businesses taking a look at what makes sense when you think about the product or service that you have, making sure that you can think about, okay, now how could people in this part of Africa benefit from using this product? And again, coming back to those needs and that insights work. The insights work is so incredibly important to really understand how you can enter a particular country and then grow. Very, very important. And I just think the long-term impact is that you will be able to have a profitable business and do well while doing business in these countries in Africa. And so it's, in my mind, it's a critical aspect for any business that's looking to be sustained over time, to think about how those products and services can be used across the continent.
Right. Thank you so much to Sonia. It definitely critical just how much population we have in Africa, and we keep growing, and we're growing at a fast rate. So that is some important insight that everybody should tap into that. So now I will ask questions to both Benita and Manny. I'll ask the first two questions will be similar, and then the third one will be different. So I'll just start with the first one to Benita. How important is understanding cultural differences and local customs when doing business with Africa?
Thank you so much. I'm going to say get your passport and your visas ready, first thing, because you have to be able to go where the people are. Culture is everything. That was probably one of the first lessons that I really had to learn, because there's no way that you're going to come into a country and try to either sell or put yourself or your thought process or any of those things on people who have been doing business or living their lives a certain type of way. So you have to come in very humble and very willing to embrace the culture, to understand how to navigate just as a tourist, you know, let alone from a business aspect, because there are so many different elements to that. And when I say get your passport together, you're going to have to be on the grounds. You're going to have to make that investment to foster those relationships and find those leaders that are doing the work that's already there. And that will be the way that I will want to come into the country, to understand their labor laws, understand who are the leaders at the embassies, understand who are your people here in the United States, for your, what's it, for us, for me, because I'm in the energy space, but Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, you know, understanding who your people are in DC, organizations like Dr. Allen. All of those things are very crucial for you to understand the culture and the lay of the land and the rule of law. I think is very important. Also, too, understanding etiquette, how you even shake your hand across the table, how you introduce yourself as a woman, the type of clothing that you put on, and how you will be perceived in a room with men or women. I think, you know, so understanding culture, I think, is the very first thing that you want to spend time and find you a mentor, you know, educate yourself on, you know, what does those things look like? Even though the countries that I have been to, they are very westernized, you know, but they also, within the country, there's different tribes. So you got to know how to interface with different tribes and just how you are perceived. Because even as an American or African American, some people are welcoming to bring you home, and some of them are not so welcoming, you know, just how we do here. So humbling yourself and really understanding the culture and getting to and do the things that they do, I think is extremely important. And the language barrier, because there may be certain aspects of those who may speak French, and you're trying to navigate. You're going to need someone who can help you navigate that speak French in order to get you in the rooms of where you're trying to get to. So you said culture, right? Did I answer the question?
Yeah, yes.
But no, I think that's where you start, and you have to be willing to invest into the tribe. You know, you have to understand that when you think of apartheid and you think of the struggles of what we have gone through here in the United States as African American or people who have gone through the struggle, they have suffered from the same thing. Even though our freedoms have been in place a little bit longer, and in Africa where the apartheid has not been as long, what, 28 years maybe, there's still a lot of remnants that shows up that is from that. So even where they have their own struggles internally, within the country, but you also have a struggle with outside people coming in wanting to take their resources. So how you enter into the country, I think, is the lifeline or the death line to how far you advance.
Right, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Benita. And then just Manny, would you like to add onto what she has said on the same
Yes, I
question?
mean, yeah, great job, Benita. I think that Benita has looked at it from, somebody from the United States who is going into Ghana. And I also like to look at it from the other way around, so that we have a 360 view about it. Now, I go to Ghana with consultants. I take businesses to Ghana to do work. I've gone with many, many, many people. But before I leave the shores of the United States, I set them aside. I'm like, hey, this is a get to know 30, 45 minutes. This is the way we do things in Africa. For example, in an African world, we value hierarchy. Hierarchy means that leaders, elders. So you don't want to show up and start calling people Joe or Samuel. We value our titles. We like to be called Mr. We appreciate that you call us honorable. We appreciate that you call us His Excellency, Her Excellency. It may be weird to you, it may be different to you, but it is what it is. Because I keep on telling people that we have this phrase we hear a lot in the United States that this is weird, this is weird. I'm like, it's not weird, it's different. Which is different. You need to understand that, but you need to understand that and go with some of those things in mind. For example, like Benita said, talk about dressing. We like to dress in a little more formal way. We kind of don't show up with meetings in gym shoes and jeans. It's just the way we do business. So when I'm doing business in Africa, when I call on Africa, I make sure that I'm dressing differently. When I'm in Africa and I'm doing business, I just make sure I'm dressing differently so that I can get the respect and the coordination of the people that I'm doing business with on the ground. Now, language. You may not speak the language, or you don't have to be an expert. But I will say that try and pick one or two greetings in any language. All you have to say is "Etiseng." Now, once the person knows that you're coming from outside and they hear you are saying "Etiseng" or you're saying something in their language, they have a respect for you because they understand that you've done your homework. They understand that you're trying to understand. It just changes the game. Because for me, if you speak the same language with somebody, it makes you closer than the color of your skin. When you can speak a language with somebody. So those are some very, very critical, icebreakers that will just change the game for you within the first 15 seconds. Now, also we talk about being formal and informal. When you're in Africa and you're trying to do business with somebody, you meet the first time with them in their offices and etc. Now, but for you to really know that the person has accepted you and the business is going to go a long way, you kind of have to break bread with them outside the office. So, for example, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, in Ghana, it's called Umutuo. If somebody really wants to do business with you, they will invite you out to go and eat Umutuo Sunday morning, where you would be eating in the same bowl, with the same hands, in the same bowl. Now, it is not because we don't have enough bowls. The significance of that is that if I share the same bowl with you, I have accepted you. Those are the times that you know that, okay, really here to. So before you leave, and it's important that you go there to go and meet people, because we are touch-feeling kind of people. Zoom is okay, phone call is okay, but we have to see you. not see you once, but see you twice. We got to shake hands with you. So go out there, do business, make sure that you have a meal with somebody outside the office, whoever you're doing business with, before you leave that office. And also, if you're doing business, especially with the government organization, sometimes the titles can be misleading. So for example, you might go into an organization and you want to do business with the CEO. Now, if it happens to be a government organizations or other structures, the CEO may not be the one calling the shots. The deputy CEO might be the person calling the shots because maybe they might have an informal relationship with the president of the country. And so that if you are just going to do business by the titles, now, if you've gone and done your homework well, or you have strategic partners on the ground and you're going to that organization, they will tell you that, hey, this is not the CEO, this is the man you have to talk to. There are people in the country who might be running the organization from outside the organization. But if you understand all those things, it just really helps for you to be able to successfully, do business. So I would say the culture, understanding the flow of things is extremely important.
Wonderful. Thank you both so very much. I think Coley maybe had to step away. Coley, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so thank you so much, Manny. That is absolutely amazing. And I love that 360 degree view, hearing from someone who's originally from the continent, from Africa, and then hearing from somebody who's from outside the continent. So I will go into our second question, which is what strategies can businesses employ to establish reliable supply chains and mitigate logistical challenges when doing business with Africa? I'll ask you, Manny, to lead us on this one. The second one, what strategies can businesses employ to establish reliable supply chains and mitigate logistical challenges when doing business with Africa? Over to you, Manny.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So it is important that you identify some of the leaders or the companies in the supply chain, both in the United States and both in Ghana. So for example, before I left Ghana and came to the United States, I used to work with a company that some of you might know called Mex Sealand. I used to be the supply chain manager for Mex Sealand, and we did a lot of things. Now, the customs duties that you might face in Ghana or in Africa, the clearance duties, some of the things that you might need to do or to know might be just a little different from the way things are here in the United States. So for example, if you want to ship a product, or you have a product that you want to send to Africa, first you want to test the market to know if your product is viable or not. So you don't want to send a container load of products to any market if you haven't tested the product. So what do? You probably want to send a smaller package sample to the continent. There are a couple of ways to do that. You can either fly it using FedEx or DHL to fly it into the country. Now, it may come at a loss because you are flying in, but it's better to go in and lose $500 on an expensive FedEx shipment than to take a container load of products and go and drop it in Ghana or Kenya and you cannot able to sell it. That's $100,000 loss. So you go in increments. Now, those are supply chain people. Now, if you have a product that is a little heavy or is bigger, so first you do your FedEx, it goes well. Then we do something we call a barrel. In the United States, most people who be it's called a barrel. You put something into a barrel and you put it into a container, a sub-container. That might give you maybe half a ton or 1 ton of product. So instead of filling a 20-foot container, you occupied only 1/10 of that container. It might take 2 to 3 months to get there. When it gets there, you clear it now. Again, you've increased your volume a little bit to be able to test to see if the product works without you sending the container. It happens in the United States. I know a lot of people who bring products, one full container into the United States, only to realize that it won't sell. Now we are selling it at 80% discount. The same thing happens here. So you have to understand those, supply chain ways so that you can land products. Now, if the product arrives in Ghana or in Africa, you need local clearing agents that know what product to deal with. So, for example, if you are shipping half a container or 1/4 of a container, there are shipping agents in Ghana who specifically deal with what we call sub-containers. If you are shipping a full container, you might have to want to deal with a different shipping agent who understands how to do full containers. If you are shipping a car or you are shipping 15 containers, you probably don't want to use a clearing agent that is doing sub-containers because they have not had exposure to those kinds of things. So just depending on what you are doing, it's just important to be able to understand your strategic supply chain players in there. Ali. Think.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Minnie. Thank you so much for that. And what I hear you say, I just want to check here, is that even if you are importing from Africa, you need to ask for samples first. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
The name of the game is samples.
I like it. I love that. All right, thank you so much. Benita, the same question, may you please add for us?
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Manny. I've experienced some of those challenges of getting the barrels over there, so I understand. I'm going to add that it's not what you know, it's who you know and who knows you, okay? Having someone on the grounds to navigate those issues or those challenges for you is very, very crucial. Because even if you're trying to manage that from the United States, it's going to take just that much longer. So having those relationships in place and people who can speak on your behalf that understand the ropes and the political structure of it, or even the cousins that may know the people who can get things to go through, that's very important as well. That goes back to using that passport and making sure you spend time on the grounds. But one of the other things I wanted to add is that you have Ex-Im Bank that is also, they provide insurance on goods that comes out of the United States. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think it's like up to 90%. And then on, other goods that are state-owned, up to 100%. But I would definitely look into how you can get your product insured as you are looking at, making those investments into the country. The other thing I will also add is that just how, ORV, WeBank, we're certified. There's an organization called We Connect. And so when you start looking at, like myself, where we do business with the corporations that are in the United States, we do business in South Africa with those same corporations. And a company, an organization like WeBank help you with the resources in order to pair you up so that you can navigate to mitigate your risk when doing business in those countries. And I think when you align what it is that you want to sell and show value with what they want to accomplish on the continent, I think is really a very great way of how you can do business there. Because in South Africa, they also have something that's almost considered like a set aside. And this is how we got started by the BBBEE. And that is where you partner with local people that are on the grounds, and you give them 51% majority, if not more, in order to have control of that company, and you manage that, or you provide your resources, you collaborate within that state. I mean, within, you know, those partnerships. And, you know, just like anything, you know, sometimes they work and sometimes they may not, but through your experiences and just getting, you know, better at what it is that you're doing and understanding how to vet those partnerships are quite crucial. But in cases of having those type of certifications and those relationships, it can make your business transaction just that much easier. And in understanding what it is that they're actually looking for on the continent and what is thriving. So that's how I would mitigate my risk, by really finding the right leaders and the corporations that are looking to take your product and look at strategic partnerships that are already existing.
Uh-oh, her head was nodding and she just froze. Thank you so much for being, there she's back. Coley, are you there?
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Right. I have another question. Thank you so much, Benita. And Manny, those are really insightful. Thank you so much for the information. Absolutely valuable. Another question, and I will ask you, Benita, to respond to this one. How can businesses ensure
Uh-oh, we've got some technical difficulties. Give me 1 second.
compliance with environmental and ethical? Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
somebody
You're
keeps
going,
trying to tell me.
yeah,
And
you're
it's
going
just
in and
not
out.
before. Yeah, okay. Let me just repeat the question, and I'm gonna ask Benita to answer this one for us. How can businesses ensure compliance with environmental and ethical standards when doing business with Africa?
I think it really starts with finding legal counsel and really utilizing your departments, your U.S. departments, in order to help you find those companies that has a global reach. Within my experience, we have, with what we do from oil and gasoline, we have worked with a law firm that's called K&L, I can't remember exactly the name, K&L Gates, I believe it is. And they have global reach. They have offices throughout the continent. And they also have people that can help you to navigate those laws and making sure that you are in compliance while doing business there. And you know, if you plan to do business on the continent, you must have legal representation that can help you to navigate with your contracts, you know, making sure that you're filing your taxes so that you can stay in compliance, making sure that, you know, the monies that's going into the banks, you know, it's a little bit different than how it is here in the United States. Those types of things are very, very crucial. And I think having the proper legal representation is the way that you can keep yourself in compliance and making sure that you mitigate your risk at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Manny, I've got one for you that says, how can businesses address the challenges of market saturation and competition when doing business with Africa, particularly in popular sectors?
Thank you. So I think that the way forward, or the way, you know, around that is value proposition and differentiation, because fortunately or unfortunately, in the last 20, 30 years, we've had a lot of influx of Chinese products onto the African continent. Now, we all know that the prices are cheap or cheaper, but the quality sometimes can also be compromised. As in business, you get what you pay for. We have a joke in Ghana that says that when you go to China, you want to go and buy light bulbs, you say, hey, I want light bulbs You don't want it that's going to last, light bulb that's going to last for a month, or a light bulb that's going to last for 3 years. You say it lasts for a month. They give you a light bulb that's going to last for a month, but it's going to cost you a month's price, depending on what you want. So what I would advise businesses going to Africa, especially when it comes to products, is not to go and compete on price. Because you cannot compete if you're manufacturing in the United States. There's no way you can compete on price when it comes to Chinese products, but compete on value. Because there's already the perception that the products coming from the West have a higher value, higher quality. So go in, understand the market, and go in and show the value of what you're selling. Don't worry about the price, because sometimes price could be underrated. But if you identify somebody who wants a product that you have, and they like it, and they can afford it, at that time, price is not necessarily the issue anymore. Because if you like the thing and you've demonstrated value to me, I may be able to pay a little more than going to do so. I would say that let's look at more of providing value and product differentiation whilst we are doing business in Africa for products.
Right. Thank you so much, Manny. Dr. Wilmot will need to rush off in a few minutes. I'd like to just give him a bit of time to say his goodbyes. And again, thank you so much to him for participating in today's workshop. Dr. Wilmot.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I have another engagement, but thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you all. Congratulations to the organization, Polly. Thank you for the invitation as well. It's good to share a panel with my fellow panelists. As always, I'm available to help. I'll be back in the tri-state area next month. And if anyone has any questions, I've left also my contact information in the chat. So thank you again. My brother Manny, let's be in touch.
I'll see you next month.
Okay. Thank you. And Renita, very, very nice to meet you. I just spoke with Steve. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Right. There is a question in the chat by Tina. It says, are there viable opportunities in the professional services industry? So Benita or Manny, any of you can respond to that, or even both of you. So do you know if there are any opportunities in the professional services industry?
I will say yes, because, you know, there are so many organizations that are eager to learn different principles and practices and procedures from the US. And so when you are able to collaborate with some of the things that they're doing and you bring that together, I do think that is very, very much so welcoming on the continent. Now, I think there's nonprofit organizations that are looking for that. I think there are medium-sized businesses that are looking for that, and even the corporations to even help their suppliers that are in their supply chain to sharpen their skills with doing business. In South Africa, I know that we have been partnered with other fuel companies that are probably new, but they gave the business to them because they were a BBBEE, a certain certification. And they needed to hit those BBBEE goals within that corporation without them being kicked out of the supply chain. And part of what they wanted us to do was to mentor them, provide them with resources, processes, procedure, so that they could learn from us where we have been doing it at this level to bring them up to speed. Because there are many individuals or young corporations that, you know, just like how we didn't really have these opportunities of owning your own business, you know, we just kind of started blossoming, you know, 60 years, you know, prior. They are just now starting, say 10 years ago. So it's a very fertile ground, I believe, for soft skills, professional service skills, mentorship, coaching up I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Thank
Yeah,
you
let's
so
jump on
much.
that. Okay. Yeah, I just
Yep.
want to add to what Benita just said, because I think that even the professional service could even be a bigger opportunity, because there's a lot of room out there. Again, you know, coming from the West, is just sometimes we assume that, you know, the quality coming from here is okay, and we are way ahead, you know, of them, because things that happened here so many years ago is not happening. So, for example, I've gone to Ghana a couple of times with a guy who went and taught transformational leadership. Those are some of us. We spoke to we taught government organizations. We even taught the government of Ghana about how to, you know, conduct leadership and how to transform and be a transformational leader. So those are really, really critical. Other areas are customer service. I've gone to Ghana just to go and talk about customer service, because it's just that customer service here is a little ahead of what customer service in Africa is. Sometimes we go back home, and with our experience here, I just noticed that there are some things that just should not be happening in the customer service realm. Now, because I've lived here for X amount of years, I'm like, these are some things that we can go in and teach in Africa. So I think that room for professional services is really, really, you know, important and growing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Benny. Right. Please allow me to ask you one more question, Hamani and Benita. I mean, this information that you're giving us is absolutely priceless. I know I had said we'll go up to 3 questions, but please allow me to ask one more question. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So my question will be similar to the two of you. We have spoken about the importance of culture, that it is different here in Africa. What I'd like to find out is, how can businesses tailor their products or even services, offerings, and marketing approaches to meet the unique needs and preferences of consumers in different African countries? I think really, how much does that difference in culture affect your marketing strategies? And I mean, what would you recommend? I think that's what we would like to hear. And I'll ask Manny to start.
Okay, so what I would say is that before you go ahead and build a product or produce a product, it will be good to interact with the people in a country to understand what they really need. Because what you might think the people need and what the people need might be 2 different things. So, for example, a company like Procter & Gamble has had a couple of challenges penetrating the African continent. So they tried, there's a popular soap in the United States called Tide. One time, Procter tried to roll out the product on the African continent. Now, it was realized that the product was not moving. So they sent their experts, you know, to the ground, like, why is the product not moving? It's selling so much in the United States. They couldn't find out. So at a later point, they sent somebody to go and live in the houses of the people, not to go and stay in a hotel and go and ask questions. Go and stay with the people and spend time with the people. The realization came out and was that, so one day, one of the P&G people in the African continent realized that every morning when they go for breakfast, the 18-year-old girl in the house is not in there for breakfast. So he's like, where is she? It's like, she's gone to fetch water. Now, water is key. Now she's making the connection that Tide, although it's a very, very good product, it takes a lot of water. So if you're promoting Tide in a country where water is scarce, you cannot sell it. So they changed that. So you realize that the counterpart of Tide in the United States is Ariel in Africa because of the water situation. So I would say, go in there, spend some time just before you get ahead of yourself, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Benita, would you like to add on that?
I mean, Manny hit the nail on the head. You know, I mean, what I would add is you know, look at going on a trade mission.
Yeah.
Find organizations where you can just really experience the people. I sit on another board called the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute. And we focus on the wellness of Black mothers and their babies. And, you know, when we go into the country, right, for South Africa, Ghana, we get a chance to go talk to the Queen Mothers. And even though, as Manny mentioned, the hierarchy in, you know, wherever you are and how you respect those that are in position of leadership, you also have a group of strong women that are called the Queen Mothers. And even in some cases, they are just as strong as the king. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's see. and so taking the time to really understand and be amongst the people before, you know, to Manny's point, you may not know what the people need or how they need it. And the only way you're going to really do that is by cultivating the relationships and spending your money to be there. You cannot really do the business through Zoom calls. I'm telling you that. That does not work. You have to be on the grounds with them. And I'm not saying one time. You have to really invest. And when I first started my business in 2016, I had been on the continent at least, I think the first year, like 6 times, you know, and I learned something different every single time. But I was building those relationships, and then people understand how serious you really are before they invest their time into really giving you the plug on how to do business on the continent. Because just as how, you know, we are sometimes reluctant of giving up all the information to outsiders, they have the same exact thing because their scars are just that much fresh.
Yeah.
And when you show your true interest at heart by going there, like Manny said, taking it outside the office, being in the villages with them, you know, you may see someone with a nice car, you know, nice lifestyle. You may think that's it because you do have takers as well as you have givers. Okay. And really finding those who are the leaders and cultivating those relationships, it opens up the flood door to get you to where you want to go. But again, you got to invest the time, you got to show up, you got to do exactly what they do before the gates are open. Just like corporations, how we look for contracts and we met them in 2000 and we probably don't get a contract until 2010, but we kept investing into that. You have to do the same exact thing.
Love that.
Quick one. I just have a joke that I want to share with you real quick. So when I was in Ghana, I was trying to do business from the United States, and one of my friends is like, "Money, this in Ghana, this is your remote control thing. It doesn't work. It gotta be here. I'm seeing a person remote control from the United States. It cannot be here." Just wanted to put that out there.
Love that. Thank you so much, Manny. And thank you so much, Benita. There is a question that we have in the chat. It says, to follow up on that last question, what opportunities are there for medical equipment and supplies distribution? I don't know if you could have that information. So I don't know if you know if there are any. It's also said that Dr. Wilmot is gone as well, because I'm sure he could have chipped in here. But yes, Benita, Manny, it would be nice to hear.
Now, okay, Benita, you want to go?
Well, I would tell you that medical, like Dr. Allen said, you know, your health is your wealth. And there are villages where I tell you a story of, with the organization that I just mentioned, the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute, we are building birthing clinics because the women lives in villages and the nearest hospital is not, you know, probably 100 miles away, okay? And then the lack of transportation in order for them to get there. And for them to have, you know, where hospitals, they can't get to the hospitals due to, you know, where they are probably living. We're looking at doing a mobile clinic in order to go to where the people are, because they need the medicine. They need, you know, they suffer from the same diseases that we suffer from here. And the access to those things are very, very difficult for many. And even the hospitals or the government that is doing the best that they can in certain cases, it still does not reach the people. That is I think that is a huge disparity for the lack of, and also helping the women to know how to do, they're called birth catchers. This is a word that I've learned. They're called baby catchers, baby catchers. And these are women who are like midwives that are catching these babies. And we went into one house where they were weighing the babies in a cheese bag, you know, where we partner with another local organization, went to the king of the village, was able to get the land and to build upon, and to, you know, as you mentioned, how our dollars can go very far on the continent. Our dollars can go very far on a continent. We understand here in the United States, there is an overflow with equipment, things that they don't need. If you can get those things to the mothers that are there, that is, I mean, they will love you forever. They will love you forever, because that is something that is not easy for everyone. Even though we have our struggles here in the United States, it's nothing compared to some of the struggles that I've seen for women, and especially pregnant women.
Wow, thank you so much, Benita. Manny, do you want to add on
Yes,
that?
in addition to the humanitarian aspect of getting, you know, products into this village, it's also a big business itself. So, for example, I know a lot of people, I mean, that buy and ship medical equipment to Ghana in Africa, and it's almost $1 billion industry. So, because just like any other equipment, the things that are in the United States that we probably wouldn't use anymore because a year or 2 or 3 old is still viable in continents like that. So there is a ready market, intermediaries who are ready to buy products like that, to distribute across the country, to sell to clinics and hospitals and all that. So yes, that is, in addition to being humanitarian, it's also a big business opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists, Manny and Benita. I don't know if anybody else has questions. Thank you so much for putting the questions in the chat. But we will open it up for any more questions, either in the chat or you can just go in and ask. Let us know if you'd like to learn more. I cannot thank you enough. Cannot say thank you enough to our panelists for such invaluable information. Absolutely amazing. Let me see. Please help me, Dr. K. Let's see if there are any questions so I don't miss any.
I don't see any in the chat. We'll just do some quick wrap-up conversations and things like that which will allow people some time to, whether they want to type it or a question may just happen to pop in their minds. We'll give some people some time to do that. Bernita and Manny and Sonia, although you'll probably watch this later, I just want to thank you all so very much. The information that the two of you have shared, and Dr. Allen, the information that has been shared today, truly, I feel like it's trite to say has been invaluable. But it's been amazing. And there are I had a lot of aha moments, even in and of myself. So thank you all for your transparency and your willingness to share. Jessica does have a question. How could she go about learning more about doing a trade mission? Do you have any specific organizations that you would recommend that she connect with?
Your U.S. Department of Commerce, the commercial division, you can find it in your local state, and they they can connect you and keep you informed as to when there are trade missions.
And in addition to that, I myself am organizing a trade mission to Ghana next year. So we could just stay in touch and I could keep you posted on that as well.
And one last plug, we're also doing a trade mission to South Africa. It's called People to People. And we do it once a year. We started last year, we did it in Ghana. And so this year we're doing it in South Africa. So if anyone would like to know more about that trip, that's gonna be in September, I'm happy to share.
Awesome. To that note, Bernita and Manny, would you all be willing to drop your contact information in the chat? So that way, those who are interested in reaching out about those trade opportunities that you just shared, as well as any other opportunities, they'll have your information. And while we're doing that, once again, if you have any other questions that come to mind, please definitely drop them into the chat. We want to make sure that we get to all of those. I am going to share my screen once again as we begin to wrap up. We do have a brief survey. We can't get better without asking for feedback. So if you can all take a moment, if you're not on your phone currently, so if you're watching this from a computer screen or something like that, go ahead and scan that QR code and complete that brief survey for us, so that way you share some information about the session, and that information will be shared, of course, with Coley, because as I said, this is kind of her capstone experience and her plan as a part of the fellowship program. And then while you're doing that, I also want to go ahead and share about a few upcoming events that we do have here with WEBEC ORV. Tomorrow, our Women of Color Committee is facilitating a Hey Sis, Let's Get Certified. So this is an opportunity for women of color to come together to learn more about being certified with WEBEC ORV and with WeBank. I'll also call out on April 23rd, which is next Tuesday. We have our ORV Town Hall that's taking place at 12 p.m. And then we also on April 25th have our Pitch Pro Talks. So this is an opportunity to come and hear from the winners from our Catch the Wave pitch competition last year, as well as 3 of our judges. They'll be sharing about their experience in being a part of the pitch program. So this is the first of our 3-part series, or 2-part series, excuse me, which really will get people ready to pitch at Catch the Wave 2024. On May 9th and 10th, our Women of Color Committee is launching our Bold and Brilliant event, Unleash Your Voice and Amplify Your Power. That is going to be a 2 or day and a half event that's taking place in Columbus, Ohio. And then if you do not already have it on your calendars, August 26th through the 28th, it's our 15th anniversary of Catch the Wave, and that will be taking place in Cincinnati. I will drop a link to our events calendar in the chat. You can find all of our events on our events calendar, and you can get information to register there. Let me stop sharing my screen and let me see if we have any other questions that have come in. No other questions, but I see Bernita did drop her information in the chat. And Manny, are you able to provide us with your contact information as well?
Yes, doing it as we speak.
Perfect, thank you. And then let me also get the link.
Now, Dr. K, whilst you're doing that, I just wanted to, I'll share this information with you guys, but I'm organizing my second Africa-America Trade and Investment Summit in Cincinnati in October of this year, where we will be bringing people, from the African continent, about 50 people from the African continent in Cincinnati here themselves. So it will be a good opportunity, for your WeBank members, anybody to come in and have, direct face-to-face opportunities with companies on the African continent.
Awesome. That's wonderful.
And I'd like to add a plug with Manny. I had the opportunity to be a part of the first one, and Manny does a phenomenal job with who he selects to be in the room, where you're able to get the relationships of those that we're talking about. So it's not the mom and pop stores. These are leaders of the different political organizations, understanding the labor laws, understanding, being connected at a very political level and at a very high level of doing business with those who have businesses on the continent as well. So I want to say that it is very well put together.
Oh, Thank you,
Wonderful.
Benita.
Wonderful. So it sounds like, I mean, I feel like this is one of the best ways to wrap up, because the information that Bernita and Manny have just shared is exactly what they're talking about, exactly what we spent this last hour and a half and some change talking about. It's not just about getting the information in our heads, but it's also about being able to make those face-to-face connections and being able to, you know, rub elbows, as we would say, or rub shoulders with people. So, you know, whether it's connecting with Bernita and Manny and Dr. Will and Dr. Allen, and going onto the continent with them in one of their upcoming events, or learning, you know, sitting at their feet and learning, or even Sonia, she has, you know, mentoring opportunities and things like that. I think there's the information is all laid out right here in front of us. All we have to do is really just, you know, grab hold of it. So I would like to say thank you all, and thank you to Coley as well for having this brainchild, I would say, to bring this as the one thing that you wanted to do for ORV. This has been amazing. And so thank you so very much, Coley.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. Does anybody else have any final thoughts?
Dr. K, this is Tina Macon. I just want to say thank you to Bernita and Manny and Sonia and Dr. Allen. This was very informative, great information that I personally am going to go back and digest and try to figure out if there's some space for Almack and Associates, and adjust my business model accordingly.
I love it. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Tina.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any final thoughts?
I say the time is now. Do not be afraid. Get your passport, get on the plane. Trust me, your eyes are going to be wide open. It is not what you probably heard. It is not what you probably seen. They are very advanced with infrastructure, technology. In some cases, their roads are better than ours. Okay. So that's something, you know, get there. Time is.
Love
Yes.
that.
Coley's been
Coley?
saying that to us. Go ahead, Manny.
Yes.
No, I was just going to tell Coley that I'll reach out to Coley later on, because what we do here, my company does, is to help the reverse side of bringing, you know, products and helping companies from Africa penetrate the United States markets as well. So we do the reverse thing as well. So we can talk about that later on offline. Yeah.
Perfect. And yes, I always say, you're welcome. Please come to the continent. Like Dr. K says, I was telling them, I'm waiting for you. So yes, I do hope you will do business with the continent.
Yes, we
Or
definitely
even come
will.
visit. Like Benita
Yes.
said, come visit. Even if you don't do business, come visit.
Yes, we definitely will. We definitely will. Well, it is 10:49, so I'm going to give everybody about 11 minutes back in their time. Thank you all again, to all the participants who are here live, and for those that are going to be listening to this recording. Thank you all for your time and your dedication and your commitment to WEBEC ORV, and to Bernita and Manny and Sonia and Dr. Allen. Thank you, and Coley, thank you all for bringing and sharing your wealth of knowledge to our organization. We so greatly appreciate it. If you all have any other questions or anything like that, you all have my contact information, and we will see you at our next event. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.